Welcome to a very special edition of the Squared Circle podcast. I'm Stefan Bennett, and today we are welcoming someone who wrestling fans previously knew as Connor from The Ascension, and now Big Con making big waves in Impact Wrestling. Big Con, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Stefan. How are you doing?
Great. It's absolutely freezing here. It looks glorious where you are.
I'm not going to say it's nice here.
I can tell the sun's shining. It looks absolutely stunning.
Yeah.
Just before we get into it, for the listeners that weren't familiar with what was announced a couple of months ago when I interviewed Taya Valkyrie, there was a deal between Impact and DAZN streaming service, a special deal which allowed you to select classic Impact matches, and shows will be available to stream on there as well as YouTube and Twitter. All 12 annual specials will arrive 7 days after they first air. Live Impact events are yet to be announced, but DAZN are said to continue to watch this space. If you have full access to the entire Impact TNA archive on demand, the Impact Plus is still the place to go for full unrestricted 20-year plus archive. So on Impact Plus, you can have over 4,000 hours of action from the vault, 8 exclusive events per year, brand new originals featuring all of your favorite Impact stars. You can also stream the No Surrender event live coming this February 24th. So check those out. So Big Con, it's great to see you.
It's good to
be Thank you. Okay, so let's start a little bit before we get into your talking about your multi-year deal with Impact and your journey so far with Impact. Obviously, a lot of listeners will remember your time in NXT and WWE as part of The Ascension, originally working with Kenneth Cameron and then Victor. You absolutely dominated NXT with Victor, and then you had your main roster call-up, squashing local talents, etc. But a lot of the people, and especially from a fan's point of view, it seemed to be at a time in WWE where tag team wrestling was almost kind of an afterthought with the product. You know, you had some excellent tag teams in the business, in the company at the time. But for some reason, things just didn't seem to really be focused on any tag team wrestling at that time. What was that experience like for you?
Oh, I mean, it was just one of those things where, wasn't the greatest experience, because you go from, a platform or NXT where, we were doing so good to being put onto the main roster. And really there was so much happening. There was really not much of a direction. And so, it's a little frustrating. But at the same time, not everything can go as smooth as you want it. So you just try to kind of roll with the punches. You do the best you can. And, at the end of the day, I always say that, a bad day up there is a great day down here. You know what I mean? So I always try to make sure to keep myself humble with things like that. I don't let my emotions get to me too much with that. So, it was frustrating at times, but at the same time, it was still such a great experience. So you're like damned if you do, if you don't,
Yeah, I mean that was from a fan's point of view who grew up watching WWE for so many years. It was so synonymous with some of the greatest tag teams there's ever been, and how popular tag team wrestling was. It was a very strange period as a fan to just, we couldn't rack our brains around. You've got all these great tag teams, but yet nothing seems to stick. Nothing seems to have any kind of direction. It just was so frustrating. And obviously I enjoyed you guys in NXT. I mean, I just thought, well, what a team you guys were. And I was so excited when you moved up to Raw, and then everything fell apart. We had it with the Vaudevillains before Simon Gotch then moved on. It was so frustrating. Before we move on to Impact, I just want to touch on NXT. Before it's the NXT which people know now, it was a very strange concept of this reality-based thing, and that's where we first really got to see you. Alberto Del Rio, I believe, was your mentor, your coach. From a guy who's trying to make a name for himself on one of the biggest platforms in the wrestling world, What was that like for you guys, especially for yourself? Thinking,
Yeah.
you know, these weird challenges that led to a lot of us just scratching our heads thinking, what is actually going on here?
Well, I mean, if I was to look at it from a fan's perspective, you never knew what was going to happen, right? So I would think from that standpoint, it was kind of entertaining. I would say to some degree. I know for us, none of us knew what to expect the day we walked in. And being really green, you don't know what to expect, and so you're already on edge, and and then it just on top of not knowing what you're doing, it's absolutely terrifying. I recall a certain instance where it would have been the match with Ricardo Rodriguez and myself, who, because of NXT, the original version, I grew a great relationship with Ricardo, who I always touch base with, who I love to this day. He's like family. And we joke about it sometimes too. Was that when I was doing this rat character, the rib was on me because I'm lactose tolerant, and so eating anything dairy made me sick, and I never wanted to speak up because I was just so happy to be doing something, other than just training. And so, yeah, man, I would go home with stomach aches and all types of stuff. But you just never knew what to expect. There was another season, I believe it was season 5, where I was with Oleg. Me and Oleg were in there against JTG and someone else. And I think it was Jacob Novak, and we were in there, and we planned out this whole match. And then next thing you know, someone came out and they mentioned that it now turned into a dance off. We had no idea. And so, but what was really cool was that it's kind of neat because you've got to learn how to adapt on the fly too. So I do think that there was some great stuff with that version of NXT because you had to learn how to adjust on the fly because you never knew what was going to happen. So I'm grateful for that. But the days of getting there when you would show up, it was nerve-wracking. You were nervous. You would ask what was going on. Everybody would tell you they don't know. So it just was what it was.
Incredible. Yeah, I vaguely remember that, the dance off. I used to just watch NXT because it was unpredictable. We always knew something was going to happen that was just going to be completely unsuspected and crazy.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that was one of the things I did enjoy about that. So fast forward to December 2019, you got your release from the WWE. How did you feel that? Did you start to fall out of love with wrestling at the time? Was you concerned about what would be next, where you would end up going from there?
Yeah, no, I did. I did fall out of love with professional wrestling for a while there because I felt like I was beaten down mentally, not so much physically, but just mentally. And it had nothing to do with the company. The company was great. It was more of a me thing. I felt like I tried to do everything I could, but then, it just was one of those things where, I just kind of would beat myself up. But it wasn't unexpected. As a matter of fact, the week prior to the actual announcement, I had reached out to a gentleman by the name of Mark Carano and said, "Hey man, like what's going on? Are we going to be let go or what? Like, what's the deal?" What people don't know was that WWE, this was how great they were. They paid for me and Vic to stay home. We weren't on the road, but they were still sending us weekly checks, and they were good amount. Granted, you want to go and you want to work for it, and you want to try to get on to some angle or get into some storyline. But when I sit back and look at it now, like they were so good to me. I can't speak for everybody, but I can speak for myself. And so for me, it was always important that I never burned a bridge. And that goes with anybody, not just WWE, just any company in general, whether it's the indies or, just anybody. I always believe in good business, but, it was expected to happen. And all I wanted was an answer. That was it. And it's hard to get answers, and because nobody really knows what's going on. But once it happened, I was never worried. I was never like, oh my God, I've got to reach out to these people or have these people reach out to me. As a matter of fact, people reached out to me, and I knew personally that I needed some time to myself, and I needed to take care of some personal issues that I was dealing with, at that time. I started drinking pretty heavy there at the end, and that was something that I wanted to handle myself, so I did a year of sobriety, and just to prove to myself that I didn't need alcohol. And I never liked alcohol. I don't like alcohol ever since. Like, I'll have a drink or two, but it was nothing like what it used to be. So I wanted to handle that. I wanted to handle my relationship with my son, because I hadn't been there. I was always on the road. So it was really important to me to bridge that connection with my son. I wanted to be more intimate and closer with my wife, because there was that gap too. So family was my main priority, my health and my family. So I was never like, oh my God, I got to hurry up and get somewhere. I got to go somewhere. I'm a firm believer that I'm always meant to go where I'm supposed to be. And I look at it now, and I'm like, I'm around family. Like, I'm with people that I truly love, and people that I know that truly care about me, not to say that company didn't, they did, but I've got a lot of my closer personal friends, with this company that I'm with now, that know me, that's been under my roof, that know my family, that knows my son. So I'm by no means angry at WWE. They've given me a wonderful platform. They helped me make my name. We wouldn't be doing this interview probably if it wasn't for them, and so I'm very grateful for them. It's just a chapter of my life that's closed, and now it's time for a new chapter.
I'm glad you managed to get to have those opportunities with your family, and to reconnect with your son. And from my fatherhood's very, very important. That's something that is very dear to me as well. So fast forward to February 2022, you debut in Impact, unfortunately defeated by Josh Alexander, and then fast forward to the later stages last year, Violent by Design. What an impact you've made since joining those guys. How was it like coming back and being put with those guys? What was that experience like?
Oh man, it was so cool. Well, let's go back to February, right? So in February, Tommy Dreamer called me up, who I absolutely love. You'll always hear me say nothing but great things about this man, because he is the one that has given me everything I've ever had. He's the one that hired me in WWE. So I have a great relationship with him. He told me the deal. He said, listen, you're going to hate the position you're put in. He goes, but it's an opportunity. And I said, well, what do you need? And he goes, you're going to come up here and you're going to get squashed by Josh Alexander. And I said, okay, cool. I was like, cool. And then they gave me the night before a 15-minute match with Eddie Edwards, who I love. And, they helped solidify me. And I always believed in good business. I never thought, it was a big deal that I went out there. And I did, quick business for Josh. Because, you look at it now and, it's like, man, I didn't expect anything to come out of it, honestly. So when I got the phone call from Dreamer, and he was like, hey man, he's like, can you believe I'm going to hire you again? I was like, oh, what? And I had to talk to my wife. I was like, oh my God, like, this is so crazy. Like, but it's so good. And then, I never really got to talk much to Eric Young. And so I got to go there and sit down with him for, a cup of coffee, basically, because he was in and out. But it felt special. It still feels so special. And to be able to work with these guys and to communicate with them, even, today, I'm probably going to let, just Cody know, hey man, you wouldn't believe what's going on. Like, I just did this, just outside of a place I'm helping a buddy do some demo work. Like, I'm like, the relationships are so good. And So I feel beyond blessed when I think about being with Impact now, and they've been so good to me. Scott D'Amore, Gail Kim, Rhino, Josh, Tommy. Like, I mean, just the list just goes on and on. They've been so supportive, and I feel special being in that locker room because I'm around a lot of young men and women that I really truly believe are going to make a lot of money in this business. And I'm around guys that I grew up in the business with. When I look at, Heath, Dango now, these are guys I grew up with in the business. So we get to talk shop when we see each other. It's so awesome.
Some of those names that you mentioned there, like the Heath and that, they've been in very similar positions to yourself where you've been as well. So it's good to have that, be able to reconnect with those people. And that's one thing I love about Impact. There's a great balance between people who have been in the business for so many years and have pretty much experienced almost everything there is to experience in the business. And then you've got the younger generation, and that it's a great blend. And that's one of the things I love about Impact. So we just touched on it. Violent by Design, you ended up being brought in with those guys. How did that come about? Did you get get taken aside and said, right, this is where we're going to put you. This is what the next step is for Big Con. How did that come about?
Yeah, I think that was based off of my understanding. Scott D'Amore and Tommy already wanted me back in February, which I thought they wanted nothing to do with me after that February shot, to be honest. And they were just like, we were just trying to find the right place to put you. That was the biggest thing. And they felt that I would be the best fit option for the design. And I mean, I feel, proud to be able to go in there and be a part of something that I feel is very special. And I get to work with people because it sounds so weird because I'm this monster of a guy, and I'm like, I adore the guys I work with. Like, but it's the way, that's just how I feel. Like, I just love showing up. I love lacing my boots with these men, and I love doing business with them.
Yeah, perfect fit. This is one of the things, I think you were so perfect for that role within the group. And then obviously there was a name change just now being called The Design. Just recruited Sami Callihan, now as Callihan, the shaving of the head and that. How cool is it to recruit a guy like that to your group? How cool is that?
I mean, it's real cool, right? It's like, Sami Callihan or Callahan, he's a wild horse, right? He's the dark horse. You never know what he's going to do. But I've known Sami for quite some time, and he's, I've probably had about a handful of people that have been in my house, that know my wife and, has met my son, and he's one of them. And so to be able to, matter of fact, I always call him little brother. So to be able to now work with him, because last time I worked with him would have been NXT, but to be able to be back together and now to be tagging or whatever it might be, whatever the stipulations are. I mean, it's awesome. It's so cool. And it's just funny how it's just like the wrestling world can be so small. And it's like you get to see people who you haven't seen in a long time, and now you're working with them, and you're just catching up on whether it's family stuff, work stuff, just whatever it might be. But it's awesome having him in the group. I'm glad he's there. And we'll just see where it goes. It's people have been asking me, do you think you can trust him? And that's not my shot. That's not my call. It's a Diener call. You know what I mean? So I'm just the muscle. I just smash and I do what I'm told.
And you do it very, very well. Final question I just wanted to, before I let you go, and I really appreciate your time, is you've signed a multi-year deal with Impact. I mean, to just touch on that, like, how did the deal come about? Because obviously this is the thing. You actually finally seem at home somewhere. You know, you actually feel like you've found where you belong, and you seem your happiest that you've potentially maybe ever been at all. Yeah, how did the multi? Yeah, it does. You do. So how did the multi-year deal come about? Can you just touch on that before we let you go?
That's just something that, Tommy and Scott talked about. They felt very confident about it, and I was excited to do it. I mean, when you can do something you love and get paid, right? I mean, that's a win-win. So for me, I was like, they're like, hey, this is the deal, man. What you think? And I'm like, yeah. I was like, I'm in. I'm sold. It's like, let's do this. Yeah.
Brilliant. That's fantastic. Well, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. Good luck with the future. I'm looking forward to seeing where this goes. Good luck with I'm looking forward to seeing what you and the design guys get up to next. But yeah, thank you so much, everyone. Big Con, wish you all the very best, and hopefully we'll get to speak to you sometime down the road.
Thank you. It was a pleasure being here.
Thank you. Take care.